It is time to talk about books again. Welcome to episode 205 of Explore Your Enthusiasm with me, Tara Swiger. This week, we are going to talk about what I'm reading, what I've been reading this week. I've got some books actually here that I haven't returned to the library yet. That I read business books, I read nonfiction books, and I read some novels. So let's dive right in. The first book, this really isn't in any order, except for I put fiction together and nonfiction together. The first one though, and the one I would most highly recommend to you, is Crushing It by Gary Vaynerchuk. So I've been reading this in little bits every morning, not every morning, but some mornings for the last 2 months or so with my cup of coffee. If you don't know what to do on social media and you don't know how to use it to grow your business, this book is going to help. He covers a lot of the stuff you might have heard or read someplace else, but puts it all together in a way that if you don't spend all your time researching and thinking about social media, you're going to love. He also talks about 8 principles for building your business, like paying attention to where the attention is, having patience, going all in, all things I totally agree with. And in fact, I went to a deep dive with about this book with my friend Jolie, who also read it, on our book and self-care podcast, Essential Enthusiasm. You can find that episode at essentialenthusiasm.com or by searching it up. However you're listening to this podcast, Essential Enthusiasm is there as well. The name of the episode where we talk about it is called Crushing It. So super easy to find. But if you have a business and you're not sure what to do on social media, read this book. You can do exactly what he says, and he gives you some very practical advice, but you can also think about how he's saying it, why he's saying it. What I like about Gary is he tells you really specifics, but he also tells you how to think about it. So how should you be thinking about whatever new social media tool comes out? And I'll be honest, this book has got me wanting to make an Alexa skill. So if you know anybody who can help me make an Alexa skill, apparently you need to know coding. So I started searching today to find a coder to help me make an Alexa skill. So check out this book, Crushing It. I think you'll like it. I'll link it up in the show notes. You'll find links to all these to get them on Amazon. As always, I usually do my reading at the library. I actually bought this book because I knew I would want it. So next up in nonfiction, the total opposite direction. So Garyvee, if you don't know, he has a podcast. He has a YouTube channel with daily videos. He's a very in-your-face kind of dude from New Jersey. The opposite is Our Lady Oprah. This book, which I wasn't going to talk about on the podcast because I don't always talk about books like these, but it's what I'm reading. The Wisdom of Sundays. It's like quotes from her show Super Soul Sunday, which if everything I just said turns you off, then I wouldn't read this book. It was available at my library, and it's a great read when I'm sitting down and I'm reading my coffee in the morning. So what I usually do is when I exercise, I come back, make my coffee, sit down, basically have quiet time, journaling, reading something, and then I'll get to work. Now, when I read Gary's book, I would do that right before I went to work, like after my quiet time. This is a book that's good for quiet time. So it's got quotes from her show, and really goes into the subjects of mindfulness, intention, forgiveness, grace. Basically, if you are constantly stressed about your business or your brain is like going a mile a minute, which mine tends to do, this book is a good way of being like, wait, let's step back, big picture, what matters with my cup of coffee, who do I want to be in my life, what do I want to focus on, where do I want to go, not just what do I need to get done. The Wisdom of Oprah's. It's a great book to read in the morning with your cup of coffee. I read a couple pages each day. It's been a nice little friend for my cup of coffee. The next nonfiction book is Unmedicated. So this book, don't be scared by the title. She's not against medication. But what it talks about is the author's journey to figure out how she could take care of her mental health outside of medication. And if you guys have listened to my episodes about anxiety and depression, there's one called Tell the Truth About Anxiety and Depression, and one a year later, which is like Anxiety and Depression a year later. The podcast isn't a full year later. It's a year after I started working on it. And I talk about all the things that I am doing to naturally support my mental health because that is what worked best for me. Medication is the answer in so many situations. And for me, finding all the other ways has been what I needed to do at this point. Who knows if it'll change. But so this book, she talks about her own journey, and in it, she focuses really on 4 pillars of mental well-being, like 4 things to work on in order to help, what do I want to say, establish or improve or strengthen your mental well-being. So first up is clear your mind, and then it talks about meditation, quiet time. Nurture your spirit, like doing things that you love, that get you passionate, following your enthusiasm. And then strengthening your body, exercise. We know all of the endorphins from exercise improve your well-being and decrease both anxiety and depression. And then the 4th pillar is to find your tribe, connecting with people who are into what you're into. So this is a good, simple, straightforward book that covers it. I liked this. This covers a lot of the stuff that the book, The Last Best Cure, also talks about, but The Last Best Cure comes from a much more scientific point of view. So if you're somebody that's like, show me studies, show me that this worked, show me tests, read The Last Best Cure. She actually had like a chronic pain issue and found a lot of natural solutions to help her with that. This is more personal insight and story, more like along the lines of coaching, whereas Last Best Cure is more like along the lines of science. So it's up to you what you're going to like. I like to read these books to remind myself to take care of myself, which I need lots of reminders for, and also because I like to care about other people's experiences dealing with this. It makes you feel not so alone. And in fact, if you want to talk more about books about self-care and taking care of yourself, I have a Facebook group called Take Care of Yourself with Tara Swiger. Totally free to join. That's where Jolie and I record our podcast, Essential Enthusiasm, every day. So every week. Not every day. You can find it, just search Facebook, Take Care of Yourself with Tara Swiger, or it's linked up in my Instagram profile. Now, the nonfiction books, which I don't have with me because I've already returned them to the library. First up, The Perfect Nanny. It is a fictionalized account of the real life nanny who, straight up guys, it's a murder mystery. She murdered the children that she was looking after. It's actually not a mystery. It's just more of a psychological character study. And if you have kids that you're leaving with a nanny, do not read it. It is scary. It's scary, but it's also so interesting. It goes deep into this lady's psychology. And again, it's a novel, so it's not the real story of what's going on in New York. I think it's in the courts right now in New York City. It's set in France, in Paris, and it's just a really interesting character study of like how somebody is like slowly unwinding from the things in her life. So The Perfect Nanny, I liked it. It was fun. I read it in like an afternoon. Next up, these next 2 books, totally highly recommend. First, The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin. You might have already read it. It's a sci-fi classic. In it, an emissary goes to this planet that is known to him and his people as winter, because it's basically winter all the time. It's like Alaska, 24/7, everywhere on the planet. And what's interesting about the planet is the people who inhabit it are humans, but they don't have a sex at birth. So they're neither male nor female. And once they get into their teenage years, then once a month, basically their body changes into either gender, and then it changes back into no gender, no sex. So he goes into this society where there isn't division between men and women. So there's like a little bit about how that's a different world, what that means for childcare. Like, there is no everyone enters public life in the same way, because everyone takes care of children in the same way, because everyone could and does have children if they've chosen to. So there isn't the burden on one half of the population to physically birth and then continue to take care of the children. So it's interesting to see what a society in which everyone is equal, and there's no discussion of race in it really at all. So everyone is the same basically. And what does that mean for how the society functions? That's interesting. But what I liked about the book even more is there is this, what's happening is that the less developed nation is becoming like investing a lot in nationalism, which is like strengthening its sense of identity by basically hating the other being like the other nation. And one of the characters talks about how that he doesn't understand that. He doesn't understand nationalism. So he's like, I don't understand how you can love a country, because what's a country? And if loving a country means you hate another country, but what even are those boundaries? He's like, I can love a hill. I can love a tavern. I can love the people in my village. But I can't love a nation if that means hating someone else, because that's entirely made up. And that seemed particularly timely. So not only is the gender stuff timely, but the nationalism, the idea that in order for us to be proud, whatever, Americans, we have to hate other countries or hate people who aren't like us or hate the other. That's no way to strengthen a nation or to strengthen a people. And I was like, Ursula Le Guin, you killed it. Super great novel. It has some periods where it's like slow or weird, but I really loved it. And weird in like because it's so 60s, 70s in some of the writing style, but really, really good. I don't know why it took me so long. Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin. Check it out. The next novel is Americanah by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She's a Nigerian author, and the novel follows a young Nigerian couple who hook up in high school and are completely in love, and then they take very different life paths, even though they think they're going to stay together. So the woman comes to America, and she goes to college in America, and she writes a blog about her experience in America. And for me, this is the most interesting part of the novel. Not the love story and the back and forth, but what she writes about her experience as what she calls in her words, being a non-American Black. It's totally fascinating to see America's crazy pants race issues from an outsider's perspective, from somebody who wasn't growing up in it, for somebody who it wasn't like the air you breathe, the crazy ways we talk about and think about things that don't make any sense to people in other countries. And in the last year, I've made tons of friends that are Australian, and although they totally have their own issues in their country, it's really always interesting when I talk to them to see how much about American culture doesn't make sense outside of it, especially around the race issue. So if you like to see America through totally different eyes and through the eyes of who's someone who came and lived here for years and years, you can read an experience of what racism is like from someone who's coming from outside of our culture, and really like so perceptive, and so she wrote about it in a way that I could fully understand it and feel it, and it's just a great book. Not only that, but the novel's really fun, and it's easy to read, and it keeps you going, and it's just like, it's a great novel. Kind of a big book, but really good. I totally recommend it. In all of my rhapsodizing about it, I think I might have made it sound a little like studious or something, or serious, and it's really not serious at all. Like, it's fun and it's funny, and there's lots of different funny characters, and it's full of love and full of like just trying to figure life out. So I totally recommend it. It's called Americanah, and that's Americanah with an H at the end. So that is what I read this month. I love to hear what you're reading, so please let me know. You can come over to the Facebook group, Take Care of Yourself with Tara Swiger, leave a message there. You can also tell me on my Instagram. I'm at Tara Swiger, or you can send me an email on the contact page on my site. Thank you again for listening. Let me know if you like these episodes and you want to keep hearing them. Don't forget to check out Essential Enthusiasm, where we talk about what we're reading every single week. And when you listen to this, last week on that podcast, we'll have talked about how we read. Where do we find books? How do we keep track of what we want to read? Where do we actually get the books we're reading? We have very different ways of going about everything to do with our reading decisions. So go over and listen to it on Essential Enthusiasm. Thank you so much for listening here. I hope you have a month full of books and a day full of enthusiasm.